of a dampener on Valentine's Day, but while this is a week of love, research also shows that more couples split this week than any other week of the year. We're just being realistic. So if you're looking to Un-Valentine, what should you also keep in mind on the money side? Well, please welcome financial planning expert and author Helen Baker. It's great to see you again, Helen. Where's your romance, lady? Now, listen, 5 things you have to consider if you're getting ready to split. And we've got a great graphic to show everyone at home. Being de facto for 2 years actually means that you're entitled to each other's money. So does de facto mean actually living together?
No. Tinder surprise, as I call it.
Tinder surprise.
I like that.
Just swiping right means it's de facto?
It could be. So if you look at the way we live these days, we're sort of big people now and we have our own houses, and if you're on second time round particularly, you might want to keep your own house for stability of the children, but then do sleepovers when it's not your week, or we might just be doing sleepovers anyway. So there's a relationship that needs to be defined through whether or not it's actually a deeper relationship and therefore...
So, Helen, if you're with someone for 2 years and you don't even live together, they could potentially be entitled to half your stuff.
Wow.
So how would you protect yourself?
Yeah, so doing things like that prenup type binding financial agreement as early on in the relationship, if you
Just
think,
when
okay,
you're dating?
pretty well, you've got 2 years, so you've got a bit of time to adjust, but I always say if he's got more than you, don't say anything. Sorry, Joe.
Now, look, what about future income? It's all very well to look at where you are at the time of the divorce, but what have you got to do when you're looking forward?
I think the focus often becomes the assets when sometimes you might want to look at what's the income. So if you're planning to step out of the relationship, how are you going to survive going forward, particularly if you have children?
Yeah.
So we've gone from 2 incomes down to 1. So you have to look at whether you're working full-time or you're working part-time. Do you have to increase retraining, child support, all those kind of aspects to make sure you've got enough income.
Wow.
And when are you entitled to child support or spousal maintenance? Is that another...
Child support is essentially around any children, and it's looking at the age of the children, what each other is earning, and then any kind of disparity in that income that you've got to allow for, and then who's going to pay for what along the way. But there can be some better ways to do it. The focus when you look at the website is on the percentage, and people will be, oh, I'm not going to give, you know, she's going to spend all the money or he's going to spend all the money and it's not going to go on the kids. So there can be some better ways to manage it.
And is that just a relationship between whoever has custody and whoever has... whoever doesn't, and they just pay regardless of who earns more money?
Yeah, so what's happening more common these days with the clients that I see is the 50-50 arrangement, but it can be depending on the age of the children. If the children are quite young, it tends to be more with the mother for a while as the primary carer. Right. So that might mean that she needs a bit more child support than if it was a 50-50 and you're earning the same kind of income.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been through it, that what you negotiate in the beginning, I feel like you should renegotiate as situations change. But tell us a little bit about the family tax benefit, because if you've got children, that's something Centrelink...
It's another form of support.
Yes,
right.
So tell me about that.
So if you just use 100,000-ish as the ballpark, so you're allowed to earn around the 100,000, and then there's family tax benefit A and family tax benefit B. So you might be entitled to both, or you might be entitled to one of those, and that's another supplement of income. So the key is to make sure you can get as much control over what you have, and some things that you might not have control over, such as someone paying their ongoing child support. Make sure that you're not, you know, backed up to the wall where you're so desperate for that money. Yeah.
What about superannuation? I've heard horror stories where, you know, wife number one's been with the partner through all of the childbearing years, establishing years, but then wife number 2 gets all the super.
Right. So the nominations on the super will determine where the super can go. It's treated separately to a will. So in your will, you might say, I'm happy to give this to here, there and everywhere. The nominations on the super are restricted to only 4 categories. So
and what are they?
Spouse, child, dependent and interdependent. So that, if it's binding, that's where it's going to go.
And a court can't overrule that. If you say, I want all my money to go to my second wife and the first wife gets nothing, that's that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's where left hand and right hand working together is really good, because if you have children from the first relationship, And I think we need to shift the focus from passing it to the parent as to we're actually talking about taking care of children. The children that you know you had together.
That's it.
As a responsibility. So looking at whether it makes sense to move it, it might mean that the ex-wife doesn't control that money, that it's set up in a different structure.
And a
but
trust or
we
whatever.
really need to look after the kids.
I like a
These are
shelf fund in Bermuda.
These are some things to think about if you are looking to break up with someone before Valentine's Day.
You've only got 24 hours, by the way.
If you've been a de facto for 2 years, even if you're not living together, you are entitled to each other's money. You should also think about ongoing income and projections. Check as well if you can claim your childcare support and spousal maintenance. Talk to Centrelink about family tax benefit. And you should also check on whether investments or superannuation can provide income. Helen's got more advice in her book on your own 2 feet divorce. Profits are donated to charities supporting disadvantaged women.
Good on you.
Very much, Helen. Well
Thank
done.
you.
You are watching Studio 10. Up next, a classic past.